Epidural. I've been there for past 20 years or so. And when they asked me to come initially, I said, nobody wants to know about anesthesia, so nobody knows about anesthesia. This is a postgraduate of postgraduate subjects. So it's not just medicine, you actually go into specialty and then things that people don't know. It's when you have a surgery, we go in for surgery, you go to sleep, and next thing you know, you wake up. We don't know what we do in between, right? And actually most people don't know what we do, even in the medical profession. Anyway, but here you are. And are you anyone in university, in college, or are you all in high school? Grade 12? University? Where are you now?
York.
Are you all, what are you doing?
Information technology.
Very good. So first year?
Going into second.
Excellent, okay. So basically, just a bit of background about myself. I was born in Hong Kong, and I'm one younger brother who's 2 years younger than me, and just two of us. Both my parents were teachers. They were just normal school teachers, not university professors or anything. And so basically for me, as I was saying before, there are three phases in my life. I spent my childhood in Hong Kong, the middle part of my life as a teenager, more or less in the United Kingdom, and lastly now in Canada. And as I get older here, I spend more time here, then that number would go to half, and 2/3, whatever, eventually, depending on how long I live. So that's my school photo in Hong Kong in 1977. I'm up here somewhere. I was actually one of the youngest in my class because I was a January baby. And my parents refused to let me join the cohort in that year. They put me in a year before me, so I'm always the youngest in my class. So I have a big voice, but I was quite small before. And what did I learn at school? How to sleep well without getting the parents or teachers noticing. I had a very boring physics teacher who was like monotone. He speaks like this the whole lesson. How do you not fall asleep if somebody speaks to you like this all through? And my chemistry teacher stutters. He goes up like that all the time. So when I did that, I was totally switched off, got bored, fell asleep. Still managed to get some B's. I don't think I ever got any A's. Anyway, so what did I learn at school in Hong Kong? How to play tennis and how to eat wine gums. And my math teacher is a father. He's a Jesuit priest. And when he teaches us math, he asks you a question. And when you raise your hand, you answer it, you get a wine gum. So we always come listen and say, I want my wine gum, right? So that's all I know. So when I was in Hong Kong, I was tossing around doing nothing. I was saying, what the hell should I do? And so I thought, okay, maybe I should go somewhere else. And one of my friends happened to be going to a boarding school in England. So I did the same. I ended up in this area, a place called Ipswich. This is London. So Ipswich is like about an hour and a half away by train. And I went there in 1977. And that was the time when there was no emails, no telephones, and certainly no texting, right? So basically when I got there, I was on my own. And the only way I could communicate with my parents was write letters. But then I got a good education. I wasn't any smarter, my DNA has been fixed, it's always been the same. I cannot be any smarter, any more stupid. So what made the difference was the teaching. So I had really good teachers, and with time I gradually turned from a B student to an A student, mostly. I still fail history. And so basically what happened was I did quite well at school, eventually ended up to be one of the school prefects. And also these are some of my friends in school. And most of them have done pretty well. I think there are two chartered accountants, 2 engineers, 1 lawyer, 3 doctors, and I don't know what the hell the other guys.
Sorry for disturbing you. You finished your university in UK or your high school in UK?
Yeah, I finished my high school and university in the UK.
I see.
I was there, I went to do high school in 1977 to 1981, and I went to medical school when I was 18 years old. and we graduated when we were 23. That's still the norm now in the UK. Is you do not have to do one of these stupid undergraduate programs. You go straight into medicine. Well, that's why, because it's a waste of time. If you are good, you should be good enough to go in the first place.
I think it's not only from the academic perspective. Yeah, being mature and how to know how to
No,
deal
we are
with people.
mature enough at 18.
Just for you.
Anyway, so that's and actually I would say that if you are 18 by the time all my classmates, all 200 of them, we were all very mature when we got there. We all knew what we wanted, we all knew what we were doing. So I don't know why it takes another 3 years to get more mature. Anyway, so this is my medical school in Edinburgh. This is the old medical school, which means they've actually now moved. The building is still there, but the new medical has been moved to a place called Little France in the south part of Edinburgh. So why did I pick medicine? I actually didn't want to do medicine to begin with. I wanted to do biochemical engineering, but there wasn't really such a good program in the old days. But I had an excellent biology teacher who was a PhD, and a chemistry teacher that graduated from Cambridge, and he came to teach us at the time. And by the time when we were in grade 13, we were using university level textbooks. All the textbooks from school was too boring, too simple, so we didn't do that. And then the math teacher was also good, but I still hate physics even now. I don't like physics. And also the application process to try to go into medicine is challenging, so it's kind of fun, so to speak. It makes it more like a competition. How do you beat the other people? How good am I? Am I good enough, or am I really bad? I didn't know that. And at the time, we had no input from my parents. They're too far away, so I made my own decisions. I want to do medicine. I don't want to do this, and that. So they just got informed. They said, by the way, I got into medicine. That's all they ever hear about medicine. And at the time, I really wanted to learn how to cure diseases at a molecular level, because in the late 70s, DNA was only discovered in the 60s, right? Double helix with Crick and Watson. And so it was a pretty new subject at the time. It was all very exciting. And as you know now, we now have gene therapy, but we're talking about 40 years later. And so that's how I got into it. And what else did I do? Well, as you know, there are too many A students, too many of them. So everybody that applies to medicine are A students. So what else do you need? So we had to do what we call extracurricular activities like what you're all doing now. And I was on a school team for bridge, I was captain of tennis, ping pong, and we did community service. And every Thursday afternoon, I still remember I have to go take a bus, go to this special school to play with the kids and look at them and just find out what they can do and what they cannot do. And at the time, I also improved my resume by being a school prefect and eventually head of a house for my boarding house. I did apply to 5 medical schools. That's all we were allowed to apply for in the UK. Only one accepted. And at the time, the ratio of application to acceptance was 30 to 1. So you've got 38 students looking for 1 spot. That's what we got. And so I got lucky. But I didn't get an unconditional offer. I got what we call a conditional offer, which means that you have to get these grades to get in. And when I was waiting for the results, I was having regular nightmares until the results came out, which is quite normal, I think. So it was hard before, but I think it's even harder now. And so there was someone who drove me all the way up to Edinburgh, and then spent 5 years there, and then afterwards working. And that's my first year in medical school. This is our medical library. We call it the Erskine Medical Library, and this is a library exclusively only for medicine and dentistry. So nobody else would want to walk into it. But when you walk into it, it's filled with books, it's filled with all the papers, all the research papers, and especially downstairs. And every day when we go there, we would lay out a lot of things on the desk and just claim my spot for the day, and then spend time there. This is what we normally do. And this is my first year matriculation card. And what did I learn in medical school? How to drink beer. Very important. And the second thing is, 3 mgs. I said, what the hell are you talking about? I found out that all the lady medical students, all the girls, when they get stressed, they like sugar. So when they're studying for exams, they will buy tons of these and start eating them and study at the same time. So 3 mgs is something that has always been fixed in my mind.
How about Mr. Big?
No, we didn't have Mr. Big in those times. We had Snickers, we had Mars bars, double-decker, Topic. We never had Mr. Big.
Oh.
And so.
I wonder, I'm older than you, and then I got Mr. Big, and one pound. This
How
size
long ago?
is really big.
I never had it, never saw it.
Oh, okay. I got it in London.
In London?
Yeah.
Which year?
Can't remember. It's a long time ago. I know. I'm suffering from Alzheimer's. Okay, don't ask me questions.
Okay, so what did I do in the UK? So I graduated in 1986, and then I went into anesthesia about a year later. And during that time, also did a lot of other specialties because I wanted to do intensive care units. And in order to do that, I spent time in doing emergency, internal medicine, OB, and pediatrics. And eventually, my big rotation in anesthesia was ended up in Cambridge and doing the what we call the regional rotation. And that's when I had to do all my exams, my final exams. And so, what did I learn in university? I found out that it's a lot of self-learning. More than half the professors were useless. So I also fall asleep in some of those classes at the time. And but a lot of self-learning. You have to motivate yourself to say, I want to learn something, so I would find all the resources that I can get to make myself know about something. If you don't understand it, keep reading about it. And then you have to make sense of what you read and apply to the diseases process or the patients that you see. That is important. And the favorite part that I like is to quote a Harvard professor saying that we know as teachers as what we teach, 50% of it is incorrect, but we do not know which 50% is incorrect. So that's why things keep changing on. So why did I eventually go into anesthesia? I like it because it's a very specialized subject, it's a very postgraduate subject, that's why I call it. And you need to know everything because we see all kinds of patients coming through. Where I can have 1 week, I can be giving anesthetic to a 30-weeker or what we call a 30-week-old premature baby with a ruptured abdomen, or a 100-year-old. And the 100-year-old that I gave it, I've given anesthetic to the tiny baby and a 100-year-old man. And this kind of makes it fun because everyone, basically I say, anyone who's alive, we'll give an anesthetic to. And it's also very hands-on. We deal with drugs all the time. And we do a lot of blocks in the nerve blocks that can maybe epidural, spinals, or anything that can numb an area so that the surgeons can operate. We are the only clinical pharmacologists and practicing physiologists, which means that normally when you go and see a doctor, they will give you a script. You take it to the pharmacist, you fill a prescription, and you go home. The doctor never physically gives you a medication, maybe except the vaccination. But for us, we play with tons of drugs. We actually inject it and poison it, right? And of course, we have to get the patient through the procedures and keep them alive while the surgeons mess up. But you don't know that.
Yeah.
So
but you have
eventually.
minimal. I'm sorry.
What's that?
Yeah, but you have minimal interaction with the patients.
No,
Minimal.
we do. That's what we're talking about. So eventually we got a fellowship in 1992. And flew to Toronto 1 week later. And at the time when I came to Toronto, I joined the residency program as a final year resident because they recognized all my training from before. And then stay on as a kid as a fellow and then as a staff as a kid. And after a couple of years, got bored and moved to North York. This is where I am now. So North York, this is the new part of North York. You know the old part is on the other side. Does anyone remember the old hospital? It's much smaller. This is the operating room suite all along here. So when we look out in during the day, then we can get traffic report like Daryl Dahmer on 680 News. And that's me in the operating room. And this is our old machine, which is, if you remember the size of it, it's actually only this big. That was in 2006. And this is our new machine. This machine itself is this one machine like this with tons of drugs will actually inject it and poison it, right? And of course, we have to get the patient through the procedures and keep them alive while the surgeons mess up. But you don't know that.
Yeah.
So
But you have
eventually,
minimal, I'm sorry.
what's that?
Yeah, but you have minimal interaction with the patients.
No, we
Minimal.
do. That's what we're talking about. So eventually we got a fellowship in 1992 and flew to Toronto 1 week later. And at the time when I came to Toronto, I joined the residency program as a final year resident because they recognize all my training from before. And then stay on as a kid as a fellow and then as a staff as a kid. And after a couple of years got bored and moved to North York. This is where I am now. So North York, this is the new part of North York. You know the old part is on the other side. Does anyone remember the old hospital? It's much smaller. This is the operating room suite all along here. So when we look out in during the day, then we can give traffic report like Daryl Dom on 680 News. And that's me in the operating room. And this is our old machine, which is, if you remember the size of it, it's actually only this big. That was in 2006. And this is our new machine. This machine itself is, this one machine like this costs more than $100,000. So each one is a Mercedes-Benz. And then this one is the electronic charting that we use. We don't use paper charting anymore. So all the patient data actually gets into the computer server and gets recorded. It works very well when the computer works and when the internet works.
It's from the charity, from the donation of the
What's
general
that?
public.
Hmm?
They are bought with the fund from the
It
donation.
is from the foundation, from the Nuffield Foundation.
Yeah, because OHIP doesn't cover that. They will pay for the care of the patients.
No,
Yeah,
actually,
not for the machines.
OHIP pays for part of the capital budget, and the capital budget, what they do, OHIP is really stupid. So what they do is, each year they will say, what's your wish list? So you give OHIP a wish list.
Yeah.
And then you wait a year, and then they will say, OHIP will say, okay, we will pay for some of these from the one that you submit the year before, but not the current one. Because, so I say, we will say, the year before someone is already out of date. Think about it that way. I don't know why they don't do that. Anyway, that's not my issue. So this is my sandbox. This is what I play with all the drugs. This is what you guys would know as the Michael Jackson drug that we use all the time. There's a propofol, and then all the other drugs that paralyze you, to take some nausea away, to reverse some muscle relaxants and antibiotics, etc. So each day we get a refresh, and we have more
What's the
things to
use
play
of
with.
propofol? Michael Jackson.
Propofol is, Michael Jackson died because of propofol.
And it's for what? For what?
Oh, go
condition?
read about it. Everybody knows about it.
Oh, okay.
And this is one of our surgeons working, a vascular surgeon in Forest. He's working on someone's leg. And this is just me taking a break. And this is our nurses that look after you when you wake up. And this is Chris, she's our head nurse. Actually, all three of them are still there, they're still working. And then some of the nurses in the operating room, they come in all shapes and sizes, with Filipino nurses, Korean nurses, and lots of, this is my favorite part, which is the pediatrics. It's one of our nurses recovering a baby. And then this is one of our Korean nurses, actually just holding on to this kid that is just had his ears done. And this is a tonsillectomy that we did or doing. So this is the nose, the eyes up here, and the mouth is open, and the surgeon will just go in to look for the tonsils and remove. This is labor and delivery, and we also spend a lot of time there. At nighttime when we are on call, we hardly get any sleep, so we work through the whole night. It's not good for our health, but we went through that anyway. And these are the monitors that is linked to every single delivery room. So all the contractions that people have and the baby's heart rate, they all get displayed up here. So that a lot of the nurses don't need to sit in the room, and they can just sit there and just look at all of them.
Question. We heard a lot about epidural, like how bad is it for a woman after?
More than 95% of first-time babies or women having babies get an epidural in our our operating room, in our labor and delivery hospital. And the other thing is that now the age of the pregnant ladies gets older because a lot of them have their career before they want to get pregnant. When you get older, all your joints get stiffer. And a lot of time the pelvis and all things cannot dilate properly, so they need extra help, which is epidural, relaxes everything. So we see women in their 40s, early 40s, late 30s having babies. Most of the time, most people have babies in their 20s or early 30s.
But what about the side effect? Like most of the laymen, like we as women,
anything can happen.
Gossiping about like don't get epidural because you get like whatever after.
You get paralysis, you may die, anything can happen. What about if you drive a car from here to Pearson Airport? Oh, don't drive a car, especially to your kids, right? You may die, you get killed, things can happen. Things do happen, but most of the time things don't happen. You only hear the bad stories. When you fly on a plane, you probably won't go air transit anymore, but you'll fly on other planes. And that's what happens.
Trust yourself, you're always in good hands.
Okay, so what did I learn in high school? So what I learned from high school was get out of your comfort zone. Do something different. Do something that you've never done before. If you have learned something, learn something more. It's almost like when you first start eating lamb. The first time you say, lamb? No, I'm only used to chicken. But you never know how good lamb tastes like until you try it.
Yeah.
Same when learning. If you're learning something, learn something different. You may like it. And also, if you want to learn something, don't go 110%. People always say 110. I say 120. Do even more. Okay? No more. And as I was telling Calvin before, if you're a very smart kid, if your IQ is over 160, never go into medicine. Be a scientist. Okay? In Singapore, if your IQ is over 160, prohibit the students to go into medicine. They are smart. Singapore tells you you're too smart, you should not be a doctor because they are stupid.
Yeah.
Okay?
What's the IQ range to be a doctor?
No idea, but has to be over 50. Anyone know this guy?
Yes, Lamb, Dr. Matthew Lamb.
Vincent.
Vincent Lamb.
Vincent Lamb is a doctor. He won the Giller Prize. You say, what kind of prize in medicine is that? It's actually a Giller Prize is a prize in literature, in English language, in novels. This guy won the Scotia Bank novel prize in 2006. Like, does anyone know Michael Ondanji? No? In his account in that league. Anyway, he wrote this book called Bloodletting and Miraculous Cures. It still works. But he gets a royalty each time when someone buys his book. So make sure you buy it, because inside, in one of the chapters, the title is How to Get into Medical School. Inside this book, he talks about a male and a female both studying to go into medicine. One got in, the other didn't. And he tell you why. So go get the book. So what did I learn in medical school? Medicine is not for everybody. What I mean is that some people like it, some people don't like it, and some people should not be in. So what did I learn? First of all, you have to find out how good are you. Are your hands good, or just your brain? And whichever one it is, you have to find a weapon. What do we mean by a weapon is, do you have a sharp knife? Do you have something that you stand out in medicine? And you have to find it for yourself. There's no point in having 10 knives that are all blunt, but you just need one sharp. And everybody started the same. Anyone know who Malcolm Gladwell is? Okay, Malcolm Gladwell is a Canadian. And he was the one that also had a quote saying that you have to practice something for 10,000 hours before you become an expert. That's Malcolm Gladwell. Read his books, they are very, very good. And one of the things he also talked about is the 20-80 rule. 20% of criminals would commit 80% of the crimes. 20% of the taxpayers will pay for 80% of the taxes for the country. And when you go into any profession or anything, you will find that 20% of your colleagues are excellent. 80% are mediocre. They are very, very average. So when you think you're all A students, you are until you go to medical school and then you find out, oh, shit, am I the top 20% of the A students or the bottom 80% of the average? And then when you become an anesthetist, you also find, holy shit, now there are only 20% of us that are really good, 80% are very average. It's always like that, okay? And that's the unfortunate way of life. And this is my 30-year reunion last year. I went back to Edinburgh. And this is my colleague, Dr. Galloway, who is a biochemist in Glasgow. And the real top of the cream is my friend here. Has anyone seen him in Toronto? Dr. Kester Kong. He's a neurologist. And he was the top student in my class. So he's like the 0.1% of the whole pile of A students in my class. This guy remembers everything that he sees. Not even things that he wants to know. He just had a photographic memory. I can't even talk to him, but he cannot talk to anybody here because he's too smart. That's the trouble. Sometimes being normal is good. Okay, so what is the hardest part that we learn in anesthesia is before we get our fellowship, you have to work during the day, and then after work, when you go home, you have to study. So you're already exhausted, you have to study more, and then you have to go to work the next day. So it's a constant process. When you're just a student, it's very easy. All you do is you go to school, you attend lectures, you go home, you study, you play with your friends, and you go to sleep. It's not as if we have a break during that time. And after the fellowship, we have to find a job. That's the other difficult part. So for us, we need a good resume. If you have done some research or win some prizes or something, that's always a good thing. It helps. I also like to say that if you want to do something for a long time, make sure you like it. So if you say for me, I've been doing it for 30 years. I love my job. I still like to go to work in the morning, and you have to be like that. You cannot be grumpy to your students, to your patients. You have to be good to them. And always, we still work hard. And every day has our own challenges. And we do see patients, because most of the patients now come in to have surgery on the same day. So they come to what we call the consultation clinic. So on average, we see 25 patients a day, and we have to talk to them to find out what their problems are and how to make them better if possible before they come for surgery. Otherwise, they will be canceled. And anesthesia is a good portable profession like radiology, emergency surgery, emergency room, or pathology. And also, if you're a female, a lot of females pick anesthesia because you can go on maternity leave, you don't have an office, and you just go away for a year, and afterwards somebody else, some locum person would take your job for a year, and then when you go back, there's a job right there waiting for you. You don't have to build up your patient base. The only thing about medicine is that there are three things. There's work. There's, if you want fame, you need to do a lot of research and publish a lot, and you have to spend time with family. Most people tell me that you cannot have all three. Okay? There is no balance for three. You can only pick two. So if you want all three, don't pick medicine. Do something else. And a word to the parents who are here is that always be supportive to your children, what they want to do. Is your child, but they're also teenagers. They're growing up. They're getting to be responsible. Let them dream their dreams. If they want to do something, just as long as it's not something that is terrible, just let them do it, right? Make sure, as long as you make sure they get an education. Two tales. Maybe I should have time for that. Okay, so I've got two friends in medical school. The first one got kicked out after 1 year. This guy was brilliant. He got accepted by University of Cambridge to do theoretical physics. Theoretical, not even physics, has to be theoretical. His mind was so good. But he was bloody-minded. He said, I want to do medicine, so he went to Edinburgh. But he didn't have a memory. He cannot remember things. So that's the worst thing that can happen to him. So he got kicked out after the first year and went to Hong Kong. He now has 2 companies, consulting firms, and he drives a Ferrari. Okay? And that's the first tale. Second one is a guy in the year above me from Malaysia. His parents would only give him education in university if he did medicine. So he did medicine for 5 years. After 5 years, he threw the diploma, and his parents said, screw you, I'm going back to do the physics that I wanted. So he went to do physics. So what I'm trying to say is, if your kid is very smart, just let them do whatever they want, otherwise you're the one getting the finger, okay, in the end.